tremendous changes within the tech world. You get to meet them and hear from them and what they are doing within their various sectors. Allow me to introduce my panel this morning. Brian Maritim, he's the founder of Skype Technologies. And in the middle, Kariuki Gethitu, who is the founder of Zegatech. And on my far left, Paris Bossier, she's the founder of Farm Drive. Lady and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Paris, I'll begin with you. You're in a very interesting sector, farming, should I say, and you found a way of integrating technology and farming. How?
My background is in computer science from the University of Nairobi. So for 4 years, I got exposed to using technology to solve problems. But in hindsight, I actually grew up in a farming village in Kisii. And growing up, I observed how farmers farm and the challenges they face. One of the key problems being lack of access to finance. Most of the farmers are in the informal sector, and they don't get access to formal credit from financial institutions. Because of my background in understanding technology and how data analytics can be used to bring up insights that we don't see on a daily basis, I found a way to use alternative data that banks don't have on farmers because banks don't have credit histories to then expose farmers as actually credit-worthy customers and a niche that's untapped in the market.
How are farmers responding to this?
There's been a very positive response. One of our key products right now is called DigiFarm in partnership with Safaricom. It's been a big rollout in Kenya. We have over 700,000 farmers signed up on DigiFarm, which goes on to show the demand for credit and the demand for tailored services for small farmers in Kenya and in Africa across.
All right, Brian, tell me a little bit about Sky Technology.
So Sky is a startup that primarily focuses on data mining. So we use our software to get data from people. So for example, we could use Twitter as a tool that people use, and we want to get the sentiments that people talk about. So we use our software to tell our consumers what are people talking about or what's going on within the circles. So for example, we could use the handshake that the president had with the former prime minister. So we use our software to give analysts what people are thinking about the handshake and tell them, oh, this is the mood that's on the ground, and this is what people are thinking about. So we use our technology to mine data on what people are thinking in the circles to give you their perspectives.
Brian, that's very interesting because the issue of data has been a big issue, especially after the whole Cambridge and Facebook issue. I'd love to hear your independent thoughts on that before we move forward. What you thought when Cambridge came out, or rather when the whistle was blown between Cambridge and Facebook, people of sharing personal information, data of their users, which has been then used in return for political influence.
Data is really important and it's key. And what most people don't know is that each time they sign up this user agreement, I agree to the terms and conditions, they forget that they're selling out the data. If I have data about you, I could always manipulate your life. And that's a key thing that most people have taken granted for. They are not using their data to protect who they are. So my response to that was that we should guard the data that we collect from our users, of which most of the companies are not guarding, because these people, let's say our users, just accept our terms and conditions without reading. So all in all, the data companies always have an upper hand because you accept it to the terms and conditions that you're going to use your data. But in my view, I think it's wrong to use data, personal data, to manipulate events and stuff without giving people their independent mind to choose whether it's right for them or wrong for them.
Kariuki, tell me a little bit about Zegatech.
Thank you, Zinzi. Zegatech is a tech company. Basically what we do, we take people's ideas, and it could be anything, from, I want to set up a bank, a digital bank, I want to automate something in my business, and then we take them through a process around discovering what the product that they want to deliver for their market. And once we do that, then we're able to develop a solution for them and for their environment and for what they want to do. So we basically work with all sorts of customers, global and local. And our goal really is to innovate for life, basically to create technology that blends into our living, that allows us to be more efficient, make life easier, and work much easier. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. We also have a payment gateway called Mpea, and we process payments basically in partnership with Safaricom and the other payment partners. So that's basically what Zegatech is.
All right. What has been the biggest challenge, Paris, of having to integrate farming and technology, two different industries? What has been the biggest challenge?
One of the key challenges that I've encountered in the process of doing my work is the lack of structure in smallholder farming for a very long time. Most of the smallholder farmers don't exist in a digitized formal structure. So we've had to start from scratch and build the rails of collecting the data on smallholder farmers in Kenya, because we need to understand the customers that we are serving. Most small farmers in Kenya are they farm on less than 1 acre piece of land, so and they intercrop and plant very many crops on those pieces of land. So even to do a yield estimation of what they're farming on less than 1 acre piece of land, it's very difficult. So there's a lot of rail and infrastructure that should have been built before by the government initiatives that have existed for a very long time, but they haven't existed. So we've literally have had to start from scratch in collecting data about small farmers and understanding how do farmers in Kenya farm, what are the value chains, what value chains are in Western Kenya, what value chains do well in the coast, which is very expensive to start.
And being on the ground and having to interact with these farmers, you believe that the government is lacking within that aspect?
There hasn't been a strong push from the government to support smallholder farmers, in as much as agriculture is, the backbone of our economy. A lot of government initiatives are not very targeted or tailored to serve the needs of the small farmers. We've had the Agriculture Finance Bank since 1960 with support from the government, but farmers still lack credit, and the mandate of AFC is to give credit to the small farmers. So there's a lack of streamline in terms of how the government structures its support to the very small farmers who need support. Most of the private companies that tend to work in agriculture only focus on the medium-scale farmers, the commercial farmers. But the bulk of our food, a lot of our food is produced by the very small farmers who farm on less than 1 acre piece of land.
I'm glad you brought in the aspect of the private sector. Yes. Do you also feel the private sector is also not doing enough to work with farmers who are, like you said, working and cultivating on less than 1 acre of land? So you have both, for example, the government as well as the private entity not really supporting them and giving them the help that they need.
In my case, I would use the banks as an example of the private sector. Only less than 1% of the entire ag portfolio in Africa and in Kenya, where we have more than 53 banks, goes to agriculture. That goes on to show that the private sector that's supposed to serve this segment are not really going out of their way to figure out how do we support this market, how do we support this niche. A 450 billion funding gap to agriculture globally and 50 billion in just Africa is too big a market for the private sector, such as the financial institutions, to not want to do anything. And that's the spot that Farm Drive is coming into. How can we use technology to automate the decisioning process to help you make more accurate decisions when it comes to lending to farmers, and even further help you design the correct loan products that suit the needs of the farmers.
Brian, paint for me an image of the challenges that you uniquely go through since your company deals heavily with data mining.
One of the biggest issues currently is data handling. The moment we get the data, we get data in raw format. So transforming this data to give the actual picture or the picture that a client would want is our biggest challenge at the moment. The other issue about data is also in terms of privacy, as you had mentioned about the Cambridge Analytica issue. We don't know how much to give into our clients and how much to hold on based on our clients' privacy needs. So there's an issue of balancing the two that comes into play.
Okay. Yeah. What about for you, Kariuki? What's the biggest challenge within your specific niche?
Well, I think, so for us, what we try and do is lead our clients through a thought process whereby they're able to develop a product that they want, right? And so one of the biggest challenges is setting the expectations around what the product is and what the customer wants. So, for example, you want to launch a peer-to-peer lending platform. Now, when you go through the needs in the market, what you had in your mind is probably not what is needed in the market. So there's that balance of what do we deliver versus what does the client want. And I know it's a bit technical and relational, but that's really the biggest thing. And there are lots of ideas out there. I mean, every single person I talk to has an idea. And the biggest challenge for them is, how do I bring this idea into something that I can use, something that comes up.
The thing with having ideas, especially here in Kenya, is that your idea, you can't patent it. It's too expensive, the process is difficult, and lots of young people fear to share their ideas or even go after their ideas because of that aspect. What do you say to that?
It's been a debate, and I'm sure you've had those debates, Brian and Paris. Personally, I think that if you don't work on your idea, somebody will one day wake up and have the same idea and work on it. As a hygiene factor, you should pursue the patents and copyrights that there are. But in Kenya, the effort for legal enforcement of anything, especially as a small player, does not balance off with what you expect from protecting it. So I would expect, say, if a big player and a big player have competing ideas and one is very strong, then they have the mandate and the power to protect those. But as a guy who's just probably finished campus, or you're 23, 24, and you have an idea, you're cash strapped, you're bootstrapping, the best idea, or rather the best way to protect your idea is to own it. Yeah, and I call it kind of like guerrilla marketing, Guerrilla marketing. Yes, such that if anybody talks about, say, farming, and credit scores for farmers, it's Paris. If anybody talks about this, if it's a unique idea, it's Brian, right? Be known for what you are, and then that will carry you forth. And I believe that ideas are meant to be out there. I keep telling people, you will die soon. Very soon, and if you do not do what you're supposed to do on this world, then what are you here for?
Brian, your thoughts on the issue of having to protect your ideas in Kenya, the whole IP process for it?
I think the challenge we have is that the big players have always taken advantage of the smaller startups that are coming up, which is really unfortunate. So it all comes down to the financial muscle. Do you have the financial muscle to fight these big guys in court? Do you have the financial muscle to protect your invention? So at the end of the day, the big players will always have the upper hand, and that's how the small players lose up and sell probably the ideas for small amount of money. And then the big players develop the whole idea and go out with it and make millions.
All right, when we come back from this short commercial break, we'll get to hear from them, from the horse's mouth, whether the government has proper facilities, proper policies, proper financing to go into feeding the tech aspect of it here in Kenya, and whether truly Nairobi can become the Silicon Valley of the African continent. We'll be right back.
This is KTN News. Daring Abroad, in association with Equity PayPal.
My name is Irene Muti. I am a massage therapist trained in the US. I've worked with chiropractors, I have worked with pain management doctors, and most importantly, I worked with surgeons. I wanted to come back to Kenya. I started in Ngong, which was very difficult because people didn't know. And that's when people were looking at me like, is she crazy? Bringing massage close to a church. I would say I'm a massage therapist and people would just like, I'm a healthcare professional, a massage therapist.
PayPal is a faster, safer way to make and receive online payments. With the Equity Bank's PayPal withdrawal service, you can access funds received from anywhere around the globe. Even better, you can now withdraw funds from your PayPal account to your Equity Bank account at a reduced rate of as little as 1%. Visit Equity's self-service portal to link your PayPal account to your Equity Bank account today.
I want to tell you, we are going to face you at the referendum and we are going to defeat you in that hyena's agenda.
You can't ascend to power by changing constitution left, right, and center.
We still have a major gap in terms of the ratio that is recommended.
It is unnecessary to have gone to Cuba. The process was hasty.
The Commission Chair has failed to be the steady and stable hand that steers the ship.
There are also issues of transformers being stolen.
The generation of tokens is the preserve of KPLC.
People are minting millions at the expense of ordinary Kenyans.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back. This is Weekend Express. If you're just joining us, I'm joined by a group of young tech entrepreneurs within their various fields. And before we left, Brian, I'd love to hear your thoughts on matters now government within policies. Do you feel as if the government has put enough policies to encourage, to boost the growth of technology here in Kenya?
So far, what I can say is the government is making an effort to boost the technological ecosystem in Kenya, but it's not doing as much as we want them to do. So I think the people who are making these policies are quite past the age, or they have been passed by the technological age. So the advice of the government could have young people help them in formulating these policies would really work out. Especially in an industry that's quickly moving. Exactly. Okay, Kariuki, your thoughts in terms of government and policies for the tech world?
There's a disconnect. And I think government has its hands full with so many other things. We had a very interesting show in the morning. But a recent policy was like the practitioner's bill, right? Mm-hmm. It was worlds apart from reality versus what people want to implement. So you could tell that the government has seen there's a challenge here that needs to meet, but somehow it was kind of like copy-pasting the accountant's policy and putting it on tech, right? Without the knowledge and the fact that the tech industry and tech people are not, they're not the same as other professions, right? So for example, they're trying to charge or bill. I don't know if it's passed. Has it passed? No?
No, I'm not sure. You should tell me.
We won't let it.
No, yeah. So putting levies on every person who's developing and things like that, and that sometimes doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, right? So there are efforts, and in the past, government has had a good spirit around boosting tech. They understand with, for example, this program was called Ajira.
Yes.
Ajira and digital programs around
the blockchain task force.
Yeah, blockchain task force. So there are some things that are happening in the government that are telling us, okay, we are listening. So people are on the international globe. We're trying to compete, but I would ask them to call Paris, call Karaoke, call Brian, put them in a group of other policymakers, and ask us, what do we want for our own industry, because it's ours, yeah? The ICT minister has never been in a computer science class, does not know how to code the website, nothing, right? But we are the ones who are affected. And so there are a number of forums, yes, that they invite us. And I would also urge the techpreneurs and people who are in tech to engage in those forums, because that's where the balance comes in.
So, Paris, what we're seeing is that the government can do more.
The government, it definitely can do more. I think the intention is there. It could be good or bad, but the lack of involving the people who are actually working in that industry creates a disconnect.
It lacks.
It lacks, yes. And I mean, we spoke a lot about this ICT practitioners bill in a group of Kenyan tech entrepreneurs, and I know, Karis, you are a big contributor in that discussion. But these conversations remain within the ecosystem. They don't go out to the policy because there's no clear way of engaging the policymakers and the people, the practitioners who are actually doing the work. That's the big gap.
And do you have confidence, nevertheless, despite the challenges that maybe the tech industry in Kenya faces, that Nairobi, Kenya can be a forefront when it comes to technology within the African continent, given the competition such as South Africa, Nigeria, and Ghana, we can become the Silicon Valley, Paris?
I think we are a star in Africa when it comes to technology. I don't think we are becoming. We really are a star when it comes to tech and the tech solutions that are emerging from Kenya, starting from M-Pesa. I mean, I know that's a cliche kind of reference as an example, but Brian himself mentioned that Zege provides technology both to global companies and local companies. That's one other way to show that in as much as we are based in Kenya, we serve a global market. When you look at other metrics like the amount of funding that's coming into Kenya, especially to the tech startups, it's a good indicator that there's a lot of interest from international companies to local companies for this particular sector. What lacks is that infrastructure. What I said, for example, in my case, the problem is a lack of existential infrastructure where you really have to invest so much money to overlay and build that infrastructure that's missing. And of course, the policies, which will then regulate how people invest in tech startups, will regulate how the startups interact with government and provide those services. And then again, on a bigger scale, technically from a market perspective, is the market ready for some of the solutions that we are providing? Is the market ready for tech recruitment platforms, let's say? Is the market ready for e-commerce? Those are the bigger things to start looking at from a unit economics perspective.
Karaoke, your thoughts on Nairobi becoming, or is the Silicon Valley?
Well, I mean, the writing is on the wall. I think the moment Uber came, that kind of like stamped Kenya as a place to go for tech in the international market. And since that time, you've seen all these companies coming up, replicas of Uber, Jumia, and e-commerce. It's really coming up. What I like is that people are stepping up, right? For example, and even companies, Safaricom is helping. For example, they've partnered with, say, Sendy to kind of make a delivery better. their products like Little Cab, and these things show how much churn there is in the industry. Now, globally, when you compare with the apexes of African tech, that's somebody said kings. There's Kenya, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa. Now, those are like the top tech companies, tech countries in Africa. And I do believe, and I think, and I've been to those countries in the tech scene, and it's really, when you look and compare, Kenya is really a bit far ahead in some aspects, right? Because of where we are and how fast Kenyans move in terms of ideas. M-Pesa was an accident, a pure accident, right? But look at what it's done, right? And so I think when it comes to us shining on the global scene, we are getting there. We're really, really getting there. So many stories about the other day, Cellulant had an acquisition or a merger, 4 billion shillings. That is such a big encouragement to the industry to know that one day Brian will be exiting at $100 million. Paris will be exiting at $400 million, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, for me, that is very encouraging. Because we're not going to be, there's this thing in the music industry, or used to be, whereby an artist used to be amazing, but then they die poor. But then what's happening right now is that we are shining, and we're going to continue shining. And I'm very happy to be in the industry at this time, at this place.
And hopefully that will not happen to Kenya's young tech entrepreneurs, where you have this fantastic idea, but you say that you end up dying poor.
Well, life happens, But I think when you have an idea, let it come out. There are many pieces that have to come together. I keep telling people that work at your skill, your challenge, because one day your skill will meet your problem and you'll be ready for the opportunity. But a lot of people want to get the opportunity first, and then they'll say, okay, now I'll start doing these things to prepare me for this. But it doesn't work that way. So I tell young people, if you get an opportunity to serve, like for example, right now we are hiring developers, just come, right? We pay very well, but come, learn, and understand that this season that you're in will take you to the next season. And that next season may be your big break or something like that.
Brian, do you agree with your fellow colleagues when it comes to Nairobi standing out as the Silicon Valley in Africa?
I think, yeah, I do agree with them. You can even take a survey of the three of us. All of us have clients outside our borders. That shows that people have confidence in the Kenyan tech space, and they are believing that what Kenya is building is in the global standards. The other issue I'd like to mention is on the need to nurture our startups. There are so many startups which are coming up in Kenya, but the question comes, are they able to be nurtured to grow into global brands that are able to compete with the big tech companies out there? That's where the disconnect comes in. And we'd like the government and other private sector players to come and now chip in, give these startups the ability to grow and gain the momentum global and outreach.
How else can we bridge that, Paris? He's raised an important issue. How else can we bridge that?
Can you repeat the question?
I was talking about the disconnect that happens. We have so many startups in the country that have the ability to compete with the global brands, but they don't have the financial muscle or the advice or the ability to go out because of so many underlying issues. So is there a way that you could have the private players and the government to come into play and assist these startups to rise up to the global
How do
stage?
we encourage the next Mark Zuckerberg could come from here, but he can't compete with a giant such as Facebook?
I'll start by giving a plug and probably acknowledge where Farm Drive started. My business partner Rita and myself, we just started straight out of college with a lot of tech skills, but a lack of understanding of finance and market and those business development skills, which are really 90% of the work that you do. Tech is a tool. It's an enabler to build a company. But we got lucky and got admitted to an accelerator program called Village Capital, 3 months of interacting with industry experts. And I got an MBA crash course, and from not understanding what a financial model is to being able to project my business in the next 5 years and creating different scenarios, which is why I'm here. 3 years down the line, I'm still here because I got that crash course and that base understanding of what it really takes to build a company, despite having the ability to code. These accelerator programs, incubators, they play a very key role in catalyzing and enabling startups to move beyond just an idea to execution, because 99% of growing a tech startup is execution, as we've all agreed. It's not the idea. An idea is just an idea. Anyone can have the idea. What's lacking currently, we have a couple of incubator programs and accelerators in Kenya, but I've seen the trend where most of these have turned into co-working spaces because there's no funding. To run an incubator successful accelerator, you actually need enough funding to be able to support the cohorts of startups coming in. And that's a big, big opportunity for the government to rubber stamp their support to startups. Why not support these accelerator programs to raise the next generation of young entrepreneurs who are then going to employ hundreds of other youth in Kenya? I have a team of more than 10 people. I think Karaoke has probably more than 30 people working for him, and all these are young people. Why not invest the money where it's really required, which is building the infrastructure, the accelerators, and the early stage funding that these startups need to thrive.
Karaoke, Paris brings also an important aspect, the aspect of co-working. What can infusion, what can teamwork, what can crossing borders and working with fellow young tech entrepreneurs, and not really just tech entrepreneurs, but other entrepreneurs do for the African continent when young aspiring entrepreneurs cross their borders and start to mingle and co-work and partner with other young Africans?
I think magic can happen, because obviously it's very important to not go alone. Collaboration and teamwork is very, very, very crucial in creating success. Now, it's just like a marriage. You have to have the right chemistry for you to have a successful partnership to move along. But not just partnership between entrepreneurs. One of the biggest things is we are getting the digital space. A lot of what has built Kenya and even Africa is still legacy. I would say 90%, I would say more than 90% is still legacy. And not many companies are asking themselves, are we going to be alive in 10 years? Are we going to be alive in 20 years? And they need to start thinking. Right? Now, I know the discussion here is tech, right? And tech incubators and stuff. But technology, like she said, it's an enabler, right? I want to see a farming incubator. I want to see an industrial area, Juakali kind of incubator. Something that now has shifted from what was and to what is right now, that is more applicable and more connected to what we are trying to do. For example, farming. Farming is a big, big need in our country. Food security is a huge, huge need. But what are people doing? They're building houses, and any land you buy, you want to divide, and then you want to sell it. But why aren't we giving impetus for people to farm, right? So that's the kind of thing. And then for these legacy companies to succeed, they need to think about their competitive edge, competitive advantage. And the more, TV has been, disrupted really, right? Right now it's digital. You cannot say, I don't watch TV anymore, right? The last time I watched TV was now, actually, right here, But when it comes to getting into the digital space, these young people can inject new blood, new ideas, because they're connected to the root of where things happen.
I'm made aware that all three of you are under one category under the FOIA Awards, which helps to recognize young entrepreneurs on the African continent who are doing amazing things. Brian, why do you think yours should win compared to Paris and Karaoke as your closing remark?
I don't really want to say I should win at the expense of my colleagues. I'm really happy that all of us have been nominated, and together we want to take the tech space in the country to the next level. So I'd like to ask the viewers to vote for me if they think I should be the Techpreneur of the Year 2018. And to vote, they should visit thefounder.co.ke/FOIA/vote and vote for Brian Maritime.
So, Paris, why do you think that Farm Drive should get it?
We all need food, and if I'm not supporting these farmers to eat, then we are all going to die. So you need me alive, we need the farmers alive. Vote for me so that we can, keep surviving.
Okay, Karaoke, your closing remarks?
I think competition is good. Yeah. Even though Mr. Matiangi said that there are no numbers, but life is not like that. I think we bring something to the global landscape, to the local landscape. Everything that you know, everything that you use, you have a tablet there, you have a pen, you have a shoe, was invented. They used to wear slippers before that, right? And think about the enablers of that. Who created lipstick? Who decided, oh, let's now paint our lips, So because we stand in the innovation space, I think it's very important to catalyze that. And as a key driver of technology, it's an enabler. It is a means to an end. But without it, there is nothing that can take you to the next level of your let me say, glory.
All right. Okay, that's a good way to end the conversation. Thank you guys so much for coming. And I wish you all the best, not only with the FOIA Awards, but also within being a driving force with technology here in Kenya and on the African continent. Paris Basile, she's the founder of Farm Drive. Karaoke Gathitu, who is the founder of Zegatech, as well as Brian Maritime, founder of Skype Technologies, giving us an overview aspect of the challenges and opportunities within Kenya's tech and growing space and how we can continue to become the Silicon Valley here on the African continent. A fantastic way to end Weekend Express. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I'll be with you again at 11 a.m. for a quick update of stories making news. Until then, it's bye-bye for now.